So, I'm with Simon Owen from Fox News. Simon, what's the atmosphere like in Glasgow at the moment?
I would say there's a bit of tension in the air because you've got thousands upon thousands of people who have traveled from all over the world and are kind of racing around this vast convention center. A lot of these people are really concerned about climate change, about the impact it's having. The conference sort of started with a mood of pessimism. You know, even the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who is so ebullient normally, was pretty down on where the conference was heading in terms of what world leaders might agree to. So I think there is a bit of tension in the air as people wait to see what the negotiators will thrash out over the next 10 days or so.
Yeah, what are the big issues leaders are hoping to address at COP26?
A lot has been made here of who's not here. So President Biden of the US is here, but the Chinese president isn't, the Russian president isn't, and that kind of casts a bit of a downer on the whole thing. If you've got these huge emitters who haven't even bothered to show up, are they really taking it that seriously? At the same time, the Indian Prime Minister is here, and for the first time yesterday, he made quite a lot of news because Narendra Modi committed to a date by which India will go net zero. On the other hand, the date he set was 2070. And the aim of this conference was to get countries to commit to 2050. So, you know, you don't need to be an expert in maths to know that's a full 20 years behind the target that the British were hoping for. So at this early stage, it's very much up in the air as to whether these various aims are going to be successful. But I can tell you that today, you know, we've heard from a number of countries, and President Biden has fronted this announcement, 100 countries that have signed up to halt deforestation by 2030. And that includes the US, but it also includes Brazil, China, Indonesia.
Yeah, going back to the in India situation, how important is it that their net zero target is 20 years further ahead, well, later than the rest of COP26?
The fact that it's 20 years, I think that is going to be seen as a blow. Narendra Modi is not somebody who is easily pushed around. And he has said that he's standing on the stage here and he believes he's speaking for a lot of smaller developing countries. And they have an argument here where they say that, you know, this isn't just the case of, you don't just say when you're going to get to net zero. There's a whole load of other stuff you've got to do as well. What are you going to do about your energy sources? What are you going to do about deforestation, methane emissions? There's just a really broad range of discussions to be had. And one of them is, how much money should developed rich countries like Britain and the US give to developing countries like India and other smaller nations to help them with the transition to going green? Because India's argument is that, you know, you look to the West and it's gone through the Industrial Revolution. It's spent decades or centuries pumping out huge amounts of carbon into the atmosphere. And the developing world had nothing to do with that. And now that the developing world is developing and pumping out huge amounts of carbon into the atmosphere, they sort of see that as their turn to come up, their time to rise. And so part of Narendra Modi's case here is that, yes, this deadline is not what the Brits had hoped for and various others in the West. But he's also saying that, look, you need to match this by turning around to us and giving some money to support poorer countries as they go through this green transition. And in fairness to him, rich countries did agree more than 10 years ago that they would give a lot of money to helping poorer countries with the transition. And by all accounts, that money has not been forthcoming.
Simon Owen, thank you very much for joining us today. That's all we've got time for.
Thanks, Alistair. Thanks for having me.